Welcome to From the Executive Director's Desk today. We're actually at Elder and Renoir Streets here in Biloxi, Mississippi. And today, Friday, is Holocaust Remembrance Day. And so I wanted to go to what I consider a sacred special site, is this historical landmark and actually the property that was the original Biloxi Jewish cemetery. And it's one of the oldest Jewish cemeteries in the Deep South, and it was established in 1855. So I want to welcome you to this sacred site. There's a few headstones left, and it's had a really kind of a traumatic history, I would say. But I want to talk a little bit about Holocaust Memorial Day. Encourages us as humans and as communities and as nations to consider genocide. Now, the one genocide that oftentimes isn't brought up, especially by American historians around the Holocaust Day, is the genocide of our indigenous folks when we arrived on this land. That is clearly one of the genocides we need to think about and remember. But as we know, January 27th, as International Holocaust Day, was really the day that marks the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi death camp. So that's why it's actually on January 27th. But we also remember on this day, there were 6 million Jews that were murdered during the Holocaust, alongside millions of others that were killed. My understanding is there were special pink triangles for the LGBT community. There were also special markings for individuals that were a part of certain religious persuasions that weren't acceptable to the Nazi regime at the time. And I think what's really interesting is that it's something that continues on, right? In Darfur and in Cambodia and Rwanda and Bosnia. There's been so many genocides, and I think this day, this Holocaust Day, reminds us to look within ourselves personally, to take a personal inventory, to do some deep digging in our soul and our spirits around our own bigotries, and around the judgments we place on those that are different from us, right? Different cultures. I moved from actually Minneapolis to Phoenix, and what I find interesting is that in every city I've lived in, there's been groups of people who have been othered. In Minneapolis, the Somali individuals were othered because their customs and their culture was different, and they were the newer immigrants to Minneapolis. In my time in Wausau, Wisconsin, it was the Hmong community that was othered because they were first generation Hmong. Their customs, their traditions were different, and they were othered, and oftentimes people in the community looked at them, and I did too, right, to be honest, as different, as odd. Their behaviors were different, their customs were different. They lived in very large homes with many family members, extended families, and people would criticize that, but what they didn't realize, it's a part of their culture. It's a part of who they are. And then moving to Phoenix, of course, much of the Caucasian folks had issues with the individuals that came across from Mexico or the Latinx population. And then moving here, actually in the Deep South, I have a bit of a different sense, because it seems like the Deep South, with certain populations, we've been working a lot longer and a lot harder on coming to understandings and coming to understand each other. So I think it really varies from place to place. But I think Holocaust Remembrance Day reminds us to look deep within ourselves, and then to look around us, and then actually to evaluate, take some personal evaluation of ourselves, but also an evaluation of the culture and the people in which we live, right? And the location in which we are. So I would encourage you to do that on this day, because there are so many in our world that still feel fragile, bigoted against, prejudiced, right? And they feel vulnerable. And I don't think we can be complacent as we look at populations that feel vulnerable and are not accepted. So in front of this, the Hebrew Rest, this is actually was called Hebrew Rest Cemetery. It was created, probably, history goes, because of one of the worst yellow epidemics known in that time. In 1916, the city of Biloxi, though, announced the imminent removal of this cemetery to put in the road you see in front of us for an expansion of Renoir and Elder streets. And that caused a bit of an uproar among the Jewish community to say, do not displace this sacred space. They still put a road through here. They didn't displace the entire cemetery, but they did put up this historical landmark. And many of these individuals that were coming here because of the yellow fever were actually coming from New Orleans, which had a much larger population, and the opportunity, right, to actually have the yellow fever because you were close proximity to individuals. So they came to Biloxi, and the Jewish population was part of that population, to kind of escape the yellow fever, which of course ended up also decimating many here in Biloxi and other places. Kind of reminds me a bit of our COVID, right? People moved down to cities and left cities to get away from the concentration of people so they could avoid COVID. It was the same thing with the yellow fever. So today, as we are here on this sacred site, for me, it's an opportunity for us to look deep within ourselves, to look at the genocide that continues to happen, to look at our own part in that genocide, and then to remember especially the Jewish community. And I as a theologian and historian, I am forever amazed at the resilience of the Jewish community, because there's been, throughout their history, there have been so many people that have tried to annihilate, so many cultures that have tried to annihilate the Jewish community, and yet the Jewish community continues to thrive and continues to survive. So keep that in mind today, and just be thankful for how far we've come, but yet realize we have much further yet to go. And so that would be my message to you today. I appreciate you joining me. We ask that you continue supporting Back Bay Mission, continue to support our capital campaign, and because we're here to really work with those who are most vulnerable in our community, whether they're unsheltered or homeless or living in poverty, or soon to become homeless. So that's our mission, that's who we are, and we really believe in what we do, and we ask you to join us in also dismantling the systems that keep people in poverty and keep people homeless. So thank you for joining me today, and I pray that you'd have a great day.